this is not an indictment of men and women in the South Sudan judicial system.
Do you believe that Machar and his colleagues will get a fair and transparent trial in South Sudan?
That is really a joke. Salva is the court is Salva. And it was the same strategy that Salva Kiir used. And it worked for him to cause genocide in Juba. Detention is probably Salva Kiir's preferred tool for dealing with a rival that he has not politically defeated. Salva Kiir never believed there was an agreement for peace.
Since Dr. Machar has been charged with treason, terrorism, and crimes against humanity, from a legal standpoint, do these charges hold merit, or are they politically motivated to weaken the opposition?
No, thank you. Thank you very much for having me and for us to discuss this very important but very unfortunate development in our country. In my opinion, and speaking also as a lawyer, I think the press statement that was issued outlining purported indictment of the sitting first vice president of the Republic of South Sudan is unlawful, and it is politically motivated, dangerously destabilizing for our country, for peace, and for the region. The indictment violates, in my opinion, the tenets of the peace agreement, both in text, spirit. It also is inconsistent with the constitution, the transitional constitution of South Sudan, 2011 as amended. And of course, also inconsistent with the international human rights standards. So the entire process where I'm seated is really not about justice, in my opinion. It is about politics. Number one, for any charge to stand, the legality of that charge is important. Now, as you know, South Sudan right now operates transitional government of national unity that was put in place by a peace agreement. Now, that peace agreement creates a legal framework that supersedes our transitional constitution and any other laws that give effect to that constitution to the extent to which there are inconsistencies. And what that peace agreement provides, it provides for an executive that its members are appointed by their individual parties. So the president is appointed by SPLA-IG, that is SPLA in government, and the first vice president is appointed by SPLA-IO, that's SPLA in opposition. The implication of that is that the appointing authority, that is the hiring authority, is also the firing authority by virtue of the agreement. And so you have a collegial executive where the president cannot exercise all the power of the executive without either consulting with the vice president prior to consultation or after consultation. So it gives you a parity of power within that particular executive. So there is no way that one partner, there's no junior partner, there's no senior partner in that executive, can unilaterally detain, investigate, and charge another party in the same agreement without resorting to the mechanism that has been established by that particular agreement. And I think that is important. And therefore, any act that has been purported to be done by the president that is inconsistent with this agreement and therefore inconsistent with the transitional constitution is null and void. So that's just from an agreement point of view. But if you look at the charges that the Minister of Justice also outlined, right? You have an issue of treason. Now, as a lawyer, treason certainly will entail that either the act or the omission of an individual constitute, it's inimical to the peace and security of a country, and therefore that person is actually in war against a particular country, right? So there is a unified sovereignty to which somebody is now challenging that uniformed sovereignty. There is one armed force, there's one executive, and you're fighting it. But in the case that we have today, there are two armies. Armies that are recognized by the peace agreement and that are in the process of integration. Now, if there is a clash between those two armies, let's not even bring the issue of White Army into this, because the allegation is that the White Army operates as a subset of IO and therefore under the direct command and control of Dr. Riek Machar. That is the accusation. So we leave that for now. So even then, what is happening will be a confrontation between two armed forces within a transitional framework, within an agreement that should be resolved and should be investigated by citizens, which is a mechanism set in place for that, because it constitutes a violation of the terms of the permanent ceasefire. And the citizen and JMEC then are the appropriate body to investigate this, not Salva, not SPLA-IG, and not his executive. So it is probably the same thing can go on for murder or for terrorism. It's absolutely the same thing. So charges are ridiculous. There is, again, the question of due process. From a human rights perspective, right? Before there were any charges against Dr. Riek Machar, he was placed under house arrest. Not just was he placed under house arrest, his wife was also placed with him under house arrest, excommunicado under house arrest. I'm beginning to think that detention is probably Salva Kiir's preferred tool for dealing with a rival that he has not politically defeated or militarily in warfare, because Riek Machar has literally just lived his life from 2013 to now, almost either detained in the city as Juba when he went back, or under house arrest in South Africa, and then from there to house arrest in Juba. And so that happened even before there were any investigation, before there were any indictment. So, of course, that is an arbitrary detention. And that is, of course, a violation of the transitional constitution and that of the agreement. The body that investigated this, purportedly investigated, because we don't know when this committee was constituted, who is the member of this committee, how they became a member of this committee, their terms of reference, the professionalism with which investigations were conducted, oversight, international, especially when you are charging somebody with an international crime. Crime against humanity. What was the international oversight? That we don't know that. So even that is a partisan process. Partisan process, of course, that is undertaken by one party to prosecute the other person, or by virtue of that impartiality, that entire process is already problematic. It violates fair trial. It violates his freedom to liberty. So there are a number of processes, from legally speaking, that are problematic with this indictment.
The Justice Minister says the accused will get a fair trial, but many critics calls it as a kangaroo court based on South Sudan's judicial system, and also there has been that some articles are not accurate with penal courts. So, do you believe that Machar and his colleagues will get a fair and transparent trial in South Sudan?
That is really a joke. Because one of the things that Salva Kiir did, and could be credit to him as his achievement, is that he destroyed the institutions of the state and replaced the institution of the state with himself. So Salva Kiir is the state is Salva Kiir. And parallel to those institutions of the state that he destroyed, he created personal institutions from the militias that protect him, from the central bank that is his wallet that he can put his hand in at any time and take money, to the judiciary. Mm-hmm. And so the judiciary has not been, unfortunately, spared of the destruction of this. And this is not an indictment of men and women in the South Sudan judicial system. It's not an indictment on their professionalism. It's not an indictment on their capacity. It's an indictment on the system. That the court system, as we see now, they serve at the pleasure of the president. We have seen just a few months ago, the president unilaterally sacked the chief justice. Mm-hmm. Even though the constitution says it is the Judicial Service Commission that has the responsibility for initiating that activity. All right. So the Salva is the court is Salva, and Salva is the one that is here trying to prosecute his own main political rival, trying to eliminate him even before the elections arrive, ensuring that he will not have a role to play. Which court in the country now that do not have the resources? They do not have financial resources. People have not collected their salaries in the judicial system for months. They don't even have a budget to function. There are no system to operate effectively. There is absolute endemic corruption in that particular system. You can go on to say that even there are issues of ethnic domination within the particular system. So how can you say that when a president has declared his main rival guilty, and it's that president that establishes this court, and now is going to the court as the other player in the football will go to the referee to tie the hand of the other team at their back so that he can kick it, that person, and you think the court will provide justice? That is a joke.
How much does political interferences undermine the independence of the court in a case like this?
No, of course, as I alluded to, in South Sudan, there is no institution that has not been politicized, and not just politicized, but designed and directed in a manner to preserve the president, to protect the president's interest, and to function at the political behest of Salva Kiir. And so that is the context in which, whether you're talking about the army, whether you're talking about the national security, whether you're talking about the court, whether you're talking about the central bank, or you're talking about the entire businesses, these are simply patrimonial network in a political marketplace where President Salva Kiir is the one who set the price of goods, and everyone else is a client that comes to purchase that good at whatever price that the president sets there. So it is a seriously political process. But unfortunately, very illiterate political politicization of our country and of its institutions.
Going internationally, the government say that it will respect the Geneva Convention and international law. Yet reports mention chemical weapons in March through May, and mass detentions and retaliation against civilians. So could this action expose South Sudan's leader to international persecution?
Why would the country want to go as far as talking about respecting international law, let them start with the peace agreement. Let them start at least by respecting what they agreed to voluntarily. And then they can move on to the constitution of the country that is not inconsistent with the peace agreement. And then, of course, they can then extend that to international law, international human rights law, international criminal law, international humanitarian law, right?
Yeah.
But for us to really think that the international system as we see it at the moment is in a position to force a regime that is bent on destabilizing and tearing apart the peace agreement that it entered into voluntarily, that has done the same thing over in 2013. And it was the same strategy that Salva Kiir used. And it worked for him to cause genocide in Juba. In 2016, it was the same strategy that Salva used to cause the 2016 up to the 2018 civil war that resulted into thousands of death and destruction and despair in the country. And what were the outcome of this from the country and from the region and from the international community? Another peace agreement. It is another mechanism. It is another power sharing. So the international community will only play a supportive role for us as citizens of the country who must take the stand to say, no, it is not about Riek Machar. I do not necessarily believe with Riek Machar's politics. I have seen the fact that once he's in opposition, he has the interest of the people. When he's in power, there's no difference between him and the Riek. That is not the issue. But as a citizen of the country, he's entitled to the protection of the law. He is entitled to due process. And therefore, it is not about him. It is about our country. It is about the future of that country. And as a result, we, as South Sudanese, must take the lead. And when we take the lead, our neighbors will support us. African Union, IGAD, the UN, and all that will support us. But if we are going to wait for them to take the lead against a state that in international law is presumed to have sovereignty and that is presumed to have the ability to take a decision and prohibit national interference, they are going to issue statements, they are going to issue condemnation, they are going to use communiques, and my relative in the village does not know anything about that communique. What they know is that the reality in the country today is that the country has collapsed, the economy has gone down, institution is already disintegrated, and these misleaders, actually, you can call them leaders, are busy shuffling and fighting for the remnants of bread that they had stolen, and they now finish it over the table. They are fighting under the table for the crumbs that ordinary people used to eat. So we have to take leadership on that, because what is happening in the country now is not about justice. It's a toxic politics. It's a politics of destruction and of displacement. And we cannot then allow this to happen. If you allow it to happen to one person, to another person tomorrow, it will be your turn.
So where does the peace agreement stand as for your opinion? since this happened? Because the first vice president has been suspended from the position.
I think one thing that we can give credit to Salva for is that Salva Kiir never believed there was an agreement for peace. He certainly believed that there was an agreement that could bring Riek back home, for him to deal with Riek once and for all. And to do that, he needed that agreement, even though he saw it as imposed by the region and by the international community, but it could serve as an instrument and a tool for him to divide the opposition, to dismantle them, to be able to imprison and, where possible, eliminate their leaders, and as a result, use the same peace agreement to concentrate whatever power that was left right into his own hand, so that he is the only embodiment of power in the country. And that part of the agreement, Salva Kiir has implemented it faithfully. But for peace, no. There is no agreement for peace in South Sudan. That never happened. And if it was on paper, it died the day that Riek Machar came to Juba. And all that has been happening from that moment until now is how each of these parties can use this paper to protect themselves, to provide for them, and where possible, to use it as a shield against the international community. It was never for South Sudanese. It was never for peace. And as long as I'm concerned, there is no agreement on peace in South Sudan today.
Dr. Remember Miamingi, thank you so much for the discussion. But now I want to give you a space where you can talk freely without me asking you any question regarding the situation of South Sudan, the justice system and the law, and everything, anything you want to say. I will give you the time to speak as you wish.
No, thank you very much. Speaking to our people as South Sudanese, it is my hope that we will see what is unfolding in the country for what it is. These are a group of politicians. When they are in power, they come together to loot, to kill, to steal, and to destroy. When the size of the cake is becoming smaller, they start kicking each other out of the table. And therefore, they come back to us again. They use our ethnic orientation, they use our religion, they use our region to appeal to our sentiment. The same people that they have killed, destroyed their livelihood, displaced them, and subjected them to extraordinary despair. They come to us and they use us, especially the young people, as a tool, as an instrument for them to achieve their political goal in the country. It is time for us as a people to say no. It's time for us to say we are not going to hand over a country to our children that is only a country in the name. It's a time for us to stand up, fight injustice, fight political exploitation, economic exploitation, irrespective of where it is coming from, irrespective of the tribe, the name, the cultural mark on the face of the individual that represents this insanity. If we don't take our destiny in our hands as South Sudanese, nobody's going to do it. It's unfortunate for us that we are facing this in a world that is engulfed with very serious problems. From Ukraine to the Middle East, the geopolitical tariff, people don't have enough space in their mind and heart for us. But we have to take our issues in our hand and rescue our country, return the power back to us, the people, put in place mechanisms that will give us a country that we can hand over to our children, organize a form of interim administration that is representative of everyone in that country, and place every single individual that have committed a crime against our people, whether Salva or Riek or anybody else, before a fair, transparent, independent process of accountability. Let them answer for their action. But this is not the time for us to allow one criminal trying to prosecute, arrest, and destroy another alleged criminal. We must not be played one against another, so that our destiny is in our hand. We are one people. Let us rescue ourselves, our country, and our future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure talking to you.